announcing the arrival of Son Excellence, Monsieur Roland Galharague, Ambassador de France en Malaisie, His Excellency Mr. Roland Galharague, Ambassador of France to Malaysia, Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk Dr. I.R. Abdul Wahab bin Muhammad, Deputy Vice-Chancellor Research and Innovation of UKM, Yang Berbahagia Professor Dr. Hajah Hazita Azman, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, UKM, Madame Emmanuelle Marchand, Conseillère de Coopération et d'Action Culturelle, Ambassade de France en Malaisie, Madame Emmanuelle Marchand, Counselor for Cooperation and Cultural Affairs, Embassy of France in Malaysia, Yang Berbahagia Associate Professor Dr. Noor Fariza Muhammad Noor, Chair, Center for Research in Language and Linguistics, UKM. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, bonjour, good afternoon, bienvenue, welcome. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you to the inaugural Jacques de Morgan Research Seminar Series UKM, Translocal Mobilities, the French-Asian Connection, organized by the research team of the project, French Humanist Perspectives on Community Life in 19th Century Malaya, with the support of the Embassy of France in Malaysia. We thank you for taking the time from what we are quite certain are extremely busy schedules to partake in the proceedings of this webinar. It is now my pleasure to call upon the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, UKM, Yang Berbahagia, Professor Dr. Hajah Hazita Azman, to deliver her welcoming remarks for the inaugural Jacques de Morgan Research Seminar Series UKM, Translocal Mobilities, the French-Asian Connection. Please welcome Prof. Hazita.
Thank you, Dr. Susanna. His Excellency, Monsieur Roland Galharague, Ambassador of France in Malaysia, Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk I.R. Dr. Abdul Wahab bin Muhammad, Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Research and Innovation of UKM, Madame Emmanuelle Marchand, Counselor for Cooperation and Cultural Affairs, Embassy of France in Malaysia, Yang Berbahagia Associate Professor Dr. Noor Fariza, Chair, Center for Research in Language and Linguistics, Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities in UKM, distinguished guests, presenters and participants. Bonjour dan selamat datang. It is my great pleasure to welcome all to the Jacques de Morgan Research Seminar Series, UKM, on Translocal Mobilities, the French-Asian Connection. Welcome. First and foremost, I would like to take this opportunity to express our appreciation to the Embassy of France in Malaysia for recognizing the research expertise at the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, UKM, and for the tremendous support provided to the research team headed by Associate Professor Dr. Shantini Pillay and her colleagues, Dr. Susanna Mahmad Saad and Dr. Ng Lei Shi from the Center for Research in Language and Linguistics at the faculty. Indeed, today's inaugural launch of the seminar series marks a significant milestone for the research team in creating a platform for the communication and dissemination of findings from the research project, intriguing subject matter of translocalities and diversity of French presence in various contexts in Asia. I would also like to congratulate the research team for collaborating with important French institutions such as the Sciences Po Lille and the Institut Pondok Perancis in this inaugural seminar for 2021. Certainly, this international synergy will nurture and strengthen the scholarship and research in the French-Asian areas of study specifically, as well as by extension, bring together new and deeper empirical knowledge from various locations and geographical contexts, connecting spaces and places from across Europe to Asia. Such spaces of international intellectual exchange is necessary for the development of fresh, new, and hopefully better perspectives of looking at the world. We envision these exchanges and engagements will generate better understanding of the world and consequently contribute towards the quest for world peace and harmony. Therefore, I hope through this synergistic cooperation that the Center for Research in Language and Linguistics at the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities in UKM, with the current collaborators, can together aspire to become the French Asia Research Hub in this region for scholarly engagements, connections, and exchanges that are engendered from the meeting of European and Asian worlds. And on that note, I wish you all the best and may you have a fruitful experience at this inaugural webinar series. And I would like to close my welcome speech with a Malay pantun. Kalau tuan mudik ke hulu, belikan hamba buah ulasan. Bersama kita berkongsi ilmu, kelak menjadi generasi berwawasan. And that is simply translated to mean, let us all share our knowledge, a visionary nation one day we will be, inshallah. Merci beaucoup et bon séminaire. Thank you very much and have a good seminar.
Thank you, Prof. Dr. Hazita Azman, for the warm welcoming speech. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. It is now time for a speech by the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Research and Innovation of UKM, Yang Berbahagia Datuk IR Dr. Abdul Wahab bin Muhammad. Unfortunately, Yang Berbahagia Datuk is unable to be with us today, but he has very graciously sent us a video recording of his welcome speech, which we will now like to play.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon. His Excellency, Monsieur Roland Galharague, Ambassador of France to Malaysia. I hope I will pronounce your name right. Yang berbahagia Professor Dr. Hajah Hazita Azman, Dean, Faculty of Social Science and Humanities, UKM. Distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Bonjour. Welcome to Nationalistic UKM. Welcome to the Teras Narrative. Today we discuss history. Tomorrow we drive innovation. It is my pleasure to welcome all participants to the Jacques de Morgan Research Seminar Series UKM. UKM has more than half a century of collaboration and engagement with the French community in Malaysia via the French Embassy and Alliance Française, significantly promoting the history and culture of France through Bastille Day celebrations and Cannes-inspired screening of French movies. We have had a long-established French language teaching record through the central role of the Foreign Language and Translation Unit of the Center for Research in Language and Linguistics, Faculty of Social Science and Humanities. We at UKM are proud of this strong connection, and today marks a revitalization of this tradition. It is my fervent hope that UKM and the French community of Malaysia can continue to create new experiences and history for another 50 years to come. Consequently, thanks to a generous grant from the French Embassy, UKM is able to conduct a research entitled A French Humanist Perspective on Community Life in 19th Century Malaya, led by Associate Professor Dr. Shantini Pillay from the Center of Research in Language and Linguistics, Faculty of Social Science and Humanities, UKM. The grant agreement signed between the Councillor for Cooperation and Cultural Affairs of the French Embassy in Malaysia and the UKM Vice Chancellor's Office on 31st December 2020 launched the above project. To date, the research has produced two invaluable outputs. One is the Jacques de Morgan Research Seminar Series, which is the reason we are here today. The other is the Jacques de Morgan French Asian Connections Virtual Research Lab of UKM. The former investigates the selection of perspective from memoirs by French individuals who visited or settled in Malaya in the 19th century, both as missionaries and explorers. The latter explores the micro-narrative of encounters with the various local communities and the evidence of more humanist modes of everyday engagement, as opposed to the established narrative of colonial divide and rule. Both outputs have been insightful and impactful. Thank you. Personally, I think the successful research project has been conducted along the lines of today's UKM TERAS narrative. TERAS is a new narrative by our Vice Chancellor. T stands for talent, E for ethics, R for revitalization, A agile, and S soul. It showcases the talent of our extremely capable faculty. The organization of this international level event has been conducted with all the professional ethics so warranted. The content of the webinar revitalizes relationships rooted in the past and brings them to the present through innovative presentation. The involvement of students and alumni of programs run by the Center for Research in Language and Linguistics, Faculty of Social Science and Humanities, as well as the significant assistance rendered by the support staff at every level of the organization of this webinar, epitomize a culture of agility. Above all, the webinar speaks to the soul of UKM as it transforms local spaces into highly potent platforms of international collaboration. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, TERAS does indeed sit at the core of our research and education in UKM. Your Excellency, I do believe that the success of this research project, as witnessed in this well-received seminar, means we should continue to have more of the same to further strengthen our ties for generations to come. For this, UKM is grateful to the Embassy of France in Malaysia for the gracious grant, without which this invaluable research project would never have seen fruition. Congratulations from me to the research team, headed by Associate Professor Dr. Shantini Pillay, Dr. Susiana Matsad, and Dr. Liz Ng Lei Shi, whose research activities as a result of this grant contribute to the university's vision for inculcating knowledge through performance. Finally, the Center for Research in Languages and Linguistics, Faculty of Social Science and Humanities, has outshined itself by providing the necessary resources and infrastructure to succeed. Shabas. To the featured speakers, I am certain that each of your contribution can only lead to a better awareness of not only French-Asian connections, but also their impact on global relations. I understand too that there are participants joining us from afar, including France, Philippines, China, Liberia, Kyrgyzstan, and Germany. It is my sincere hope that all of you will thoroughly enjoy this webinar and be greatly enlightened by it. It is my hope also that you find your participation in this conference a great experience both professionally and personally. Thank you, and I bid you a very good evening. Sekian, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Datuk, for the speech and insights. Ladies and gentlemen, Mesdames, Mesdemoiselles, Messieurs, it is with greatest honor that we now call upon His Excellency, Monsieur Roland Galharague, Ambassador of France to Malaysia, to deliver the official opening address and to launch the Jacques de Morgan French-Asian Connections Virtual Research Lab. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Dear Professor Dr. Abdul Wahad bin Mohammed, Deputy Vice Chancellor, dear young dear Dr. Hazita Azman, Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, dear Associate Professor Dr. Shantini Pillay, the chair of this seminar, dear Dr. Suziana Matsad, and dear Liz Nden Laishi, members of the committee, dear members of the faculty, distinguished guest speakers, dear participants. First of all, my apologies for connecting a bit late due to technical problems, but I finally made it. And I must say that it was important to me to be able to attend this opening. It is indeed a great pleasure to be with you today for the launch of the Jacques de Morgan French-Asian Connections Virtual Research Lab for the first webinar of the new series of the Jacques de Morgan Research Seminar Series UKM. And I would like, first of all, of course, to thank Associate Professor Dr. Shantini Pillay and her colleagues, Dr. Suziana Matsad and Dr. Liz Nden, as well as Ms. Anne Vincent, Research Assistant, for their continuous efforts to create this series of webinars and this virtual lab. For over a year now, education has been disrupted and access to campus has been restricted for students and faculty alike. But despite this, the research team has managed to stay the course to be able to offer us this event today. So congratulations, you did a splendid job. I would also like to thank all the researchers in France and Asia who have prepared academic papers for this seminar and whom I hope will be active participants in the virtual laboratory. You have chosen to name this virtual lab and the webinar series after Jacques de Morgan, an explorer of the 19th century who has left a very distinguished and interesting memoir, notably about the state of Iraq, with wonderful illustration, if I may say, on a personal note. But in fact, you might have chosen from an array of different names. Let's just remember the brother Fa Parmentier who came to Malaya in 1529. Let's remember Charles Robetin. Let's remember Pierre Favre. Let's remember Bro de Saint-Paul. Lots of others. A very long list, in fact, of French travelers who at different stages, as early as the 16th century, as we see, have come to the shores of what was not Malaya at the time, but was what the land of the Malays, a different country. And this is, of course, testament to the fact that the French individually, not as the representatives of a state, but the French individually have been much more present in Malaysia and its history than we often think. They came, as I said, mostly on an individual basis, and so their stories are less known than the ones from the successive Portuguese, Dutch, and British colonizers. But we are able, from what they left behind, and they left a lot actually, from the culture of Pantoum in France to the establishment of one of the first chairs ever where Malay was taught in the late 19th century in France. They have left testimonies, and testimonies about the ties and the way they looked at Malaysia at the time. There were explorers, some were priests of the Mission Étrangère de Paris, which are still enduring today, and have founded a number of schools, over 120 schools in this country, some of them still active. But my point is, this wealth of testimonies, this wealth of experiences is actually very worth researching. And this is why I think that your project is particularly relevant. It will no doubt enrich our understanding of the birth of different stereotypes, of the birth of different images of various nations. It will also, I think, modify our understanding of the rise of otherness under the colonial period. And in this regard, I would point out that one of the most famous books, and actually a very good book written by a Malaysian researcher on this relationship with the colonizers, the work of Alatas, the myth of the lazy native, is full of references to, of course, British sources, Dutch sources, because Alatas had studied in the Netherlands and spoke the language, etc., but actually very few French sources. And I think it would be very interesting, for instance, to compare how these French sources modify our perception of what Alatas was writing. And as we have just heard, I think this type of project can only contribute to the history of Malaya or Malaysia before Malaysia, to the history of globalization and to the history of our perceptions, and therefore, hopefully, contribute to better relations among nations. So I must say the French Embassy and its cultural department are very proud and very happy that we're able to support this endeavor. As you know, cooperation in the humanities is one of the pillars of Malaysian-French scientific cooperation. The French Embassy in Malaysia supports many scientific projects each year, including this one, of course, but we believe that this is the opportunity to establish long-lasting partnerships based on excellence. We believed it's also an opportunity for us to encourage travels and encounters between Malaysians and French people, both here and, of course, in France. So we hope that the international networks of researchers and professors that we are fostering can be further strengthened, and that stronger links can be developed and created between Malaysian universities and French research centers. So with this, and without further ado, it's my great pleasure and my great privilege to officially declare open the webinar series and to wish long life to the Jacques de Morgan Digital Research Lab on French-Asian Connections. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.